fucking do. We're live. We're live now for anybody joining us. Obviously, I don't even want to say the fucking score.
Yeah,
42-27.
Oh, dirty. They done us dirty, man. Oh,
that
Jesus.
was fucking disgusting to watch. Where to unpack here? Where did it all go wrong?
I mean,
you're not going to do it, but because I'm a Safa fan and I'm a South African guy, I'm going to do it straight out. That was some of the most horrific officiating I've ever seen in a test match.
it was shocking. Yeah,
Angus Gardner basically handed the French that victory, like from the offset. You got one decent call your way at the very end of the first half. It was just, it was over quick.
You made some really, 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 really bad decisions and made them really quickly as well, without even stopping to consider. Once or twice, even his, like at the end, you saw there was an intentional knock on, and his assistant referee was intimating that this is very close to the try line. You know, are you sure it's just a penalty? You know, everybody in the stadium was like, that's an intentional knock on. There's no way, like, he's killed a try there, you know, so, or a potential try, you know, but anyway, it was littered. But I suppose the first thing to say is France were really good value for their win. They're a fantastic team, you know, considering they went down to, they lost Dupont to a cruciate. I hope he's okay. And they still had a serious bench to come on, you know, and Ireland were always going to struggle with that. But the key moments in the game were before all of that, really. And if Ireland were going to make, you know, build enough of the scoreboard to actually, you know, hold on to something in the last 20 when the cavalry arrives. But I mean, I'm sure we're going to get into it. There's a number of factors there, but I mean, you mentioned it from the off or from the moment I saw you. Is Sam Prendergast running the attack? No, he's not ready.
He looked like a scared kid. Like 90% of the time, he looked like a scared kid out there. And like, look, we saw it. I'll bring it back to the Springboks because that's predominantly what my followers are. We saw it, the debut of Jordan Hendrickse against Wales. He looked overwhelmed, so we took him out of the game early. He looked overwhelmed. I would have been pulling Sam off at half. He was completely out of place. Like, you saw him so many times where he could have been in key positions. There were holes in the defense. He could have made it, and the guy would step back 3 or 4 steps to take himself out of the play. And it was like, you could just tell that every time it got messy in the dark spaces, the camera would pan out and Sam was backed away.
Yeah.
Like, it was almost like he was like, okay, I don't want to go in there because I might, you know, and it's, I get it. He's a kid. He's young. It happens. I mean, I'm not angry at him as a person, but the coaching staff should have recognized that way earlier than they did.
Yeah. And look, I mean, there's 2 ways to look at it. You know, I mean, if you're thinking of having the fly half situation sorted out for the next World Cup, then, you know, he's going to have to sink or swim right now if he's the guy. You know what I mean? And he's just going to have to take this stuff on the chin. But at the same time, like, for me, like, you got to respect the jersey. You can't just put a guy in there when you know you've got a better option to do the job, who isn't going to shit his pants, by the way. This other guy that, you know, I'm sure Irish fans will come at me. Please come at me, because the alternative stood up in Paris last year and didn't shit his pants. So, like, you know,
I mean, it seems like it's the Leinster fans. I mean, we don't want to go into a whole Leinster bash thing, but they sat here for the last week. I'm like, oh, he's going to do a masterclass and show how he's better than Dan. And I'm like, no, he's not. Not yet. He's not close. I mean, I'll even say this, like, we didn't get to see a lot of Antoine Dupont. I would have put Connor Murray in way earlier than they did. When Connor came on, I don't know if you noticed, like, he shoved people. There was a point in the last 5 minutes of the game where there was a kick into the try zone, and Ramos picked it up.
Mm.
And you had Crowley, or it was either Crowley or Connor Murray, shoved him. Like, shoved him. Like, let him know, like, hey, we're not dead. Like, we don't care what you think. And they needed that boost. I just wish they had gotten it about 20 minutes early. You know, the unfortunate... the Calvin Nash, that was the killer. They scored, 16 points, 15 points, while Calvin Nash was out with the yellow. I'm glad it stayed a yellow. It was not a red card, in my opinion.
No. But you could just see Gardner bottling the decision and just hand that over and let someone else deal with it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, like we to see the Southern Hemisphere referees coming up, like, and they've been up for for some of our European games as well. Straight away, we kind of look at that and go, "What the hell is going on here?" You know what I mean? We know there's this agenda to push the 20-minute red card and all this kind of stuff, and you just wonder, is that the horse they rode in on? You know what I mean? But
I mean, I get it to be unbiased. I do get it. They want to have unbiased referees, but like Angus, I had posted it already. It was a photo of his stripped over a French player's body, and it was like, shouldn't have taken Aki off.
Maybe.
Aki just seemed out of it early. I guess he took like a little bit of a hit early in the game, and he looked like he just never was the same after that. Now, I will say this 100%. If Ringrose had been out there, I think it would have been a different story. I hate to say it.
Potentially, yeah. But he's the defense leader, yeah.
Yeah, Gary Ringrose is one of the better defensive players you have, not having him out there. And I mean, like, I think the fucked up part is that there's so many South Africans that were supporting France in this. I wasn't. I was supporting Ireland. I wanted them to prove the doubters wrong. And unfortunately, that's not going to happen this time. But for me, you can't have an official be that much in control of a game. Angus Gardner controlled this game from the whistle blow, and it was just like,
you just heard his voice. You heard his voice more than the commentators. He was that vocal. It was ridiculous. Like, I mean, he had the captains over for chats. Like, they may as well have just been sitting down having a picnic in the middle of the field for 5 minutes. Every 20 minutes, they'll just do that. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like, there's no need for it. I mean, there's a heap of things. I mean, like, we have to talk about the French try at the key moment. Like, and like, that was a key moment that took them beyond a one-score game. And
once again, during the Calvin Nash penalty, that was the dagger right there. That Calvin Nash penalty was the dagger. You had messaged me. I didn't know what was going on with Lowe. Apparently, he had back spasms during warm-ups. Not like yesterday, not this morning. Like, during warm-ups, it was a late change. And I do think that was a big difference maker right there too. When you don't think you're playing a game and then you find out 20 minutes before the game starts, oh yeah, you're playing, bud.
Yeah, and I think their gamble with Osborne is, I think he's got a little bit to go as well to kind of to prove himself. He's not quite 100%. Like, but he's a good player. You know, he's a good player. He's got a lot of potential, but it's not quite there yet. They definitely targeted his side.
Definitely a lot with the 2 tries by how do you say his name? Biel.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the 2 tries, it was all targeted on that side of the field. I feel like. How about Hugo Keenan? How would you rate him? Did you feel like he had a proper game? Did you feel like he was okay? Was it like,
I thought he was okay. Like, he was very good under the high ball. He didn't really drop anything. He retained a lot of, anything that was kicked his direction, he dealt with it. Defensively, he was okay. I certainly wouldn't have, looked at him for any of the issues. I mean, they picked out our wingers. They definitely picked out our wingers.
That was the deadly thing right there.
Yeah.
The wings were the weakest spot. They attacked the wings constantly.
Yeah.
I hate it because this is how Omeni had to go out. This is how Ken Healy had to go out.
Yeah.
This is how Connor Murray had to go out. Like this is not a good way to go out. This was a disappointing result. This is not what I don't think anybody picked. I think even if you picked France, Keenan and Doris were standouts. Kalen Doris was showing why he's your captain today.
Yeah.
Kalen Doris was vicious in the ruck. I mean, he was causing trouble the entire game for everyone. Hugo Keenan, great. Denshian getting the try. It was kind of all for naught at that point, basically. But
I suppose Sheehan's try off the driving maul was kind of that was in. I think you're getting confused with the tries, unless I missed a try in the last minute, but I didn't.
I turned the game off at the 75th minute. There was just no reason for me to watch anymore. Like after that turnover and the run down the field and the try, I was just like, okay, yeah, this is.
Yeah. You see, that like we have to talk about it because that's damaging stuff now for a kid. So you put like, and it will fall on the coaching ticket. This is their responsibility. They put a kid out there, talented kid, okay, but he's not built enough. He needs at least 2 pre-seasons to get himself up to professional standard. He's not. He doesn't have the strength and conditioning. He just isn't. He's not built as an athlete yet. You need to actually put the time into him. And fair enough. You want to get him there for the next World Cup, but I mean, the World Cup cycle is great, but like the bread and butter is the Six Nations. I mean, I'm not sure if you know how much money is involved in Six Nations, but
look, it's kind of funny being on TikTok. I kind of just to go like kind of back in time. I initially had an account that blew up. Like I had like 40,000 subscribers in a little over 6 weeks. I amassed that, and then my account got shut down for making posts about the amount of non-Irish born players on Ireland. My account got shut down for it. So when I restarted TikTok, I went to those Irish kids and I made friends with them to kind of to understand. And I think for me, growing up on the Rugby Championship, like that was the gold standard as far as how everything was done. And then I saw what the Six Nations does, and I saw the production values, the ticket revenue, the traveling, like
prize fund.
I look. I'm a diehard. I'm always going to be a Southern Hemisphere guy, but I'm not going to lie. The Six Nations does it better than the Rugby Championship.
Well, that's a fact. You know that.
Period.
Yeah, simple.
Production values, everything is much higher in the Six Nations.
Yeah.
It is, and that's a fact. And I know Southern Hemisphere people. Now, whether you want to debate the quality of rugby, that's fine. But the overall production values and the finances, the money, makes the Rugby Championship look like chump change. There's just so much money.
Somewhere between 6 to 7 million prize fund or that's your prize for if you win if you win a Grand Slam. I think it's closer to 7 million. Now it could be gone up again this year. So that's what, you look at all these unions in the Northern Hemisphere, like the English and the Welsh, and struggling to keep afloat. You know what I mean? Even though they've got like a huge amount of players, because they don't really have that much money. So for someone like for Ireland, it's like, yeah, we need to win this thing. Like, you can't afford to ignore this, And I'm not saying that they've ignored it, but they've put a 10 in there that everybody knew. Like, everybody outside of, the blue tinted glasses, Leinster fans, everybody outside of that could see this guy's not ready for international test rugby yet. He's not ready. So they put him in. And unfortunately, he threw an intercept there and had to run back like a tit, trying to catch one of the fastest winners in world rugby. He's never going to catch him. He may as well have just stood up because it was done.
I think missing that first kick for Sam Prendergast too, you saw like his confidence already wasn't at the top, despite, like I said, I know Leinster fans are going to come to his aid, and that's fine. You're allowed to. But the fact of the matter is he looked out of place the entire time he was on the field.
Yeah.
This was not. I don't think he was ready for what was about to happen. I don't think he thought. It's kind of like the first time you face the All Blacks, the first time you face the Springboks. You don't know. You can watch all the footage in the world. When you're on that pitch, it's completely different. The game is moving way faster, and I've seen guys make that comparison. It's like, okay, what's the difference between amateur, club, test? And they were like, it's the speed. It's the speed.
Yeah.
When you get to that test level, there's no slow pokes. Everyone's the top, and I will say this, and Timac really didn't shine as well, but they don't need him to because they don't focus on their 10. It's their 9 and their 15 is who get all the focus on the offense with France.
Playmakers, yeah.
And
10 is almost like another 12.
Yeah. So that was kind of another issue kind of going forward. Like we talked about the 7-1 split. Who did they end up moving in? They moved in one of their... Yeah, he has the potential, but he definitely didn't show. I'm going to stick to it. They should have started Crowley. They should have started Crowley. He would have been a mutt. He's played against France countless times. He had the sound ability. He would have been able to be comfortable in that rush offense they brought.
Yeah, for sure.
Sam was out of place. He was just out of place.
He's just not ready for it. Simple as that. But I mean, there was a way to do this without seemingly putting all your eggs in the Sam Prendergast basket. They could have just played him against Wales and Italy, and that would have been a reasonable start for a young man of 21 years of age. That's what you should expect. You shouldn't expect to be given the keys to the car straight away when you've achieved precisely 0 in your career. You shouldn't be expecting to be given the keys to the top 2 or 3 or 4 teams in the world, to be running that team, running that show. You can't expect that. But somehow they just gave it to him. I don't know what he's doing in training. He must be doing incredible stuff.
Georgie and Common, Ireland's been off since. Honestly, this Ireland team we're seeing now. That team you took to South Africa, even with all the injuries you had, they would be slapping the shit out of this team right now.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it's missing personnel, but no. Do you want to know what I think it really is? This is what happens when you don't have Andy Farrell pulling all the strings.
But that's a big factor. That's a big factor. You have to wonder how much influence he has or he had in the year. It could have been completely hands off. Because I suppose by contract he shouldn't have any contact with Ireland now.
He was at the game, but he obviously was not in the coaching box, and I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, as much as I can talk shit about Andy Farrell, the fact of the matter is that he's cut from a certain cloth that coaches like Rassie Erasmus, coaches like Steve Hansen for him, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
he's an alpha dog. He's an alpha. He's a meat eater. He is a pure testosterone. That's what he runs on.
Yeah,
and his emotions are in check. That kind of thing. Like Andy Farrell is when you want to talk about big dog he is a big dog coach. He's not a Gregor Townsend. He's not a Steve Borthwick. He's of that top level. And
he's not a beta male.
He's not a beta. He's definitely an alpha. Like Andy Farrell's 100% an alpha. No question about it. Like I said, that guy probably eats nothing but meat and potatoes. Like that's all that guy probably eats. And you need that. You need that viciousness. You need that guy that can change on the fly. Because Andy would have made the changes as he saw them needing to be made. When he saw Dupont go out early, I guarantee you there would have been adjustments immediately.
It's a change of kind of of how the side is run. Essentially, like you never got the 10 jersey unless you absolutely like every 10 Irish 10, from Raj, to David Humphreys before him to Johnny Sexton, they all had to like fight like hell to get the 10 jersey. Like, I mean, Johnny didn't get it until he was 24 years of age. Like Prendergast is garbage, losing this to make Leinster happy.
Leinster happy. I mean, like I said, they're going to be the ones. It's going to be the Leinster fans that are going to have really the biggest thing to like, kind of the biggest shit sandwich to eat in all of this because you guys have read him so hard. He's the truth, he's the future, and it's like, it is he maybe, but like he's not at this point. He's still unproven.
Yeah.
Like he hasn't proven anything to any. You know what I mean? Like he's not. Yeah. He's nowhere in the conversation with a Johnny. But Johnny Sexton, how many caps did that man end up having at the end of the day?
He got over the century anyway.
Yeah, like it's going to be a while before you can put anybody in that conversation. We're talking, guys, it might be a good 4 or 5 years. Irish playbook hasn't developed much either. Other teams have figured them out. They definitely got the people and players to innovate and develop. I agree with you 100%.
Like, I kind of... Yeah, I mean, like, what good is a playbook though if you're not implementing anything? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's really all down to the 10. It's so much down to the 10. The 10, he runs the week. He's got control over so much. Obviously, there's a coaching input, but when do you execute a certain play? Do you know what I mean? That's what the 10 does. And like what I see with Prendergast is, like the latter years of Sexton, when Sexton was just a little bit, he was on the way out, he would sit back a little bit and just orchestrate everything. But he still went to the line. He still got smashed. He was trying to not get smashed up too much. But
he couldn't recover as well as he used to.
He couldn't recover. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he was probably being told, like, we need you, so like try not to get smashed. Because he had this habit of literally going to the line and taking the hit and then getting the pass off late. But, and Prendergast he seems to be just sitting back a lot, and that's his problem. It's easy. You don't have to, like, it's all in front of the opposition. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
they can see it coming, but like, there's no real variation to it. They know where he's going to be. Like, at least if Crowley was on a 10, Crowley is no slouch in defence. The man loves to tackle. Simple as that. He's hard as nails, and he's got a great attitude. He's great running. He will make a gain line for you, and he's got a decent skill set. He's a decent kicker of the ball. Arguably not as good a kicker as Prendergast, but like, it swings and roundabouts. You can't have a guy who's just there to...
3 points wouldn't have won us the game. Wouldn't have won Ireland the game.
No.
That's the point. 3 points wasn't the difference maker. And I think, like I said, with Crowley, so this is what, with Crowley, we've seen what he looks like angry. We see what pissed off is for him, shoving people, getting upset, getting in people's faces. We don't see that with Sam. We just see a kid, and it's like, I get it. Time will make that into you, but it's like, do you not look at the guys around you? Do you not look at, like, the frustration? Man, that second or third to last try that Ireland had, you could just see Andrew Porter was broken. He was heartbroken. Like, he was just like, I'm done. And I'm like, when you see that, take that guy out of the game, sit him on the bench, go talk to him, say, hey, look, man, we'll get this figured out. You'll be all right. But having a score get run up like that, especially when you're a 21-year-old, 22-year-old kid, that's going to hurt, man. That can screw you up mentally for life.
That's the point I'm making. They've gambled here, and they may actually do themselves more damage than if they'd just gradually bled him into the team, just giving him a couple of games and then maybe a tough game. Because, like, I mean, the way it used to be measured was, okay, so the closest thing we have to international test standard is the latter stages of the European Cup for club rugby. So we need to see a guy stand up in club, for Leinster and do it. If you can do it for Leinster, maybe win the European Cup. If he can do it in the tight games against the big French teams in the knockout stages, then he's potentially ready for Test rugby. But like, he hasn't even played any. Like he hasn't
No.
even played any. Like he's literally just started with Leinster. Like it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
You're going up against arguably the top team in Europe outside of Ireland and in your own backyard. You got to think with the coaching staff that decisions needed to be made, choices need to be made, and the fact of the matter is, one is just a bad game. Ireland got out-coached in this game. They got absolutely out-coached by Fabian Gorceau. How do I even say his last name? Fabian Gaultier, with those fucking idiotic shade glasses he wears. God, I don't know who told. I know French people think they're stylish as hell. No, you're not. You look like a moron wearing those things. Go put some fucking contacts on, Grandpa. Your fucking transition lens wearing ass. Like,
you're right. Look, the better team won the game.
Very much so. Yeah.
I would have to say like the French are the best. They're the best team in Europe now. Like you can't really argue that. Their pack, they've got 2 packs, 2 front rows that are absolutely elite. They're totally elite.
That front row is scary with France.
It's nasty. Yeah, it is nasty.
That is.
You see how they were counter-rucking Ireland? They were really just shifting guys out of the ruck, and that made some incredible impact, So Georgie's laughing at something. I'm not sure. Look, I mean, so they deserved it. They've got 2 fantastic wingers, 2 of the best wingers in the world. A great pair of halfbacks, and we have to take it on the chin now, and somehow kind of rebuild, pick up our shit, and move on. But,
so you've got Italy to finish it out. What does France have to finish it out?
Oh, let me see. France, is it Scotland?
Could Scotland play the heartbreaker? I doubt it, but
I don't think it is actually. Sorry.
Who do they got last? Well, because they already lost to England. They beat the crap out of Wales. They beat Italy. So I think it is. I think it's Scotland.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Could Scotland be the?
Scotland have a decent record against them, but I honestly hope to God the French win it. The last thing I'd like to see now is some poxy, the English just to somehow like get in there and win that, having been totally useless in the championship so far, but somehow managed to
It's something pretty interesting that I realized. I was doing some research a few weeks back looking at England because they've done well at World Cups. They've made, they've won one, they've made a couple of finals, they've made multiple semifinals. And it was actually a Scottish commentator that brought it up. He was like, go look at their record in between World Cups.
Yeah.
England does really good in World Cups. They're nothing more than mediocre in between. They're never they might go to one rank for a month or 2 or whatever, but they really just pack it all in when it comes World Cup time. And I get it. I mean, because it means it's the biggest international stage. But it's
sorry, for them it's their style of rugby. So they have this, big powerful, pack and absolutely like all else, so they don't really do, but they just box kick and kick for territory, and then they have a powerful pack. That is literally all they've got. I mean, I was watching a highlight reel there of Anthony Watson, and I was just thinking what an athlete he was, but it's a pity we never saw it because he never got the ball. So
no.
He never got the ball for England, and while that's okay, in between World Cups, players are playing for their clubs, and they actually play great rugby for their clubs, but they play a completely different style. And then when it comes to World Cups, they all get behind it. Do you know what I mean? They just
it's a big thing because it's the world stage, and
they all get behind it.
It's just like the FIFA World Cup; they will never let you forget that they won it once upon a time.
So France for the win, surely,
yeah.
France for the win.
So we finished out this. Obviously, we have a little bit of a break. I don't know if Ireland's going to have any summer games before the British and Irish Lions tour. I know England is playing the United States. Do you know if Ireland gets to play anything before all that?
I don't think so. I think that's it until the Lions tour, is it? And then when is Chicago?
November.
Yeah. Okay. So no.
So, which I will not be attending because I'm not a rich man. I don't have that kind of money to pay for tickets. But moving on, next week we got one last chance here. You've got Italy. Does Italy worry you at all as an Irish fan?
No, but it's almost inconsequential. Like, I mean, it's like, what do you do now? Like, see, you're in a position. You have Sam Prendergast. You can hardly reward him for that performance. Okay,
Yeah,
you can't reward the guy for that performance. But at the same time, what else are you going to do? You're going to put Crowley in against Italy, and Crowley just basically in the back of his mind is going, well, fucking, it's a bit too late, guys.
Yeah. Because this was essentially the deciding game of the tournament today. This was the championship match of the tournament.
So Crowley he'll probably start the next game. I expect Ireland to win comfortably, and kind of playing for second place then, which is, oh man, it's a bitter pill to swallow.
There's no trophy for second place. You either win or you don't. Was hoping to go for the three-peat. It would have been nice, but I hope this is not a turning of the tides, because if you look at the history between Ireland and France, especially in the last 20 years or so, it's very streaky. Each team wins 3 or 4 in a row. Maybe there's the off one here and there, but I hope this is not a turning of the tides. I hope this is not like a beginning of 3 or 4 years of France just decimating. Today was that was decimation. That was not a close game. That was like those incidental tries at the end don't mean anything. I hope this is not a turning of the tides, because I don't want. There's very few teams I hate a lot in World Rugby, but France is one of them.
Really? Why is that?
I think maybe it's the made the final in '87. Okay, gets the All Black. Baby Blacks basically beat their ass. They've made multiple finals. I think they made 2011. They were also in that final. Do you remember what happened in the pool in 2011 with France?
I can barely remember that now.
They lost to Tonga.
Yeah, see, that's the thing with the French. Like, you can't.
It's kind of like us losing in 2015 to Japan, you losing in 2019 to Japan. It happens occasionally, but like I don't. They keep saying it's like the golden age of French rugby. To me, the golden age of French rugby was like 2010, 2011, 2012. To me, that was the golden age. I feel like it really just goes to cement like the whole idea that, Antoine is like the greatest. He's not. I'd still, once again, I would pick Jamison Gibson Park 10 times over for him, just because I know Gibson Park's going to at least have a bit of attitude. And he's also, he was born in New Zealand, and they're a little tougher down there. But I've never liked French rugby. It's kind of like people, I don't have to make the argument of why I don't like England, because nobody likes England except the English.
We are ripping into everyone here. Everyone. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, like
Ireland, France, England, South Africa hasn't got any tearing yet, but they're not playing. So
everybody hates South Africa. Even South Africans hate South Africa. But I mean, like, okay, so when I came here, when I came to the U.S. and was in the whole rugby world, I didn't realize, like, a lot of people look at England here as the gold standard for rugby, and I was just like, what for? Like, what? Like, why would you look at that? Like, people here, because they don't have a lot of access to rugby for years, the only accessible rugby here was the Premiership.
Okay.
And like people are like, "Oh, you don't like watching that?" And I'm like, "Dude, it's to me, it's like watching the WNBA versus the NBA. I think the Premiership is absolute rubbish, and it always has been. And the only thing that makes it good is the amount of imported players that they have playing in it. I've just never looked at it as a high standard of rugby, and it's just like I said, it's a personal opinion. You can disagree with me, and that's fine because we're allowed to do that. But I look at the French rugby system as kind of the same thing. It's like you're good because you have a lot of money and you have a lot of private money, and then you see the way the French act when they go overseas. I mean, we heard what happened on the Argentine tour, with the
Yeah.
young lady. I mean, we know that they love to do cocaine. They love to do cocaine. And I mean, like, look, I'm not going to hate on you for that, but don't sit up here and act like you're high and mighty and a golden and a great team when you're far from it. Like,
Well, I guess like to kind of to expand on your earlier point, this team has been heralded like as potential golden age for French rugby, right? But
yeah,
this could all change in a heartbeat. Like I mean, like you never know, especially if it's an away game. You never know what type of a French team is coming. I've seen games where they've just rolled over and died. Do you know what I mean? And you're like,
yeah,
some of the best players in the world, they've just given up. Like maybe a black cat passed the bus or something, and
yeah,
that good luck. Someone had an argument in camp, and everybody is just up in arms. And that happens in French rugby regularly. There's usually at least once every 10 years. There's a massive either a strike or there's
exodus of players that just quit.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, they
yeah,
just quit the national team for some reason.
yeah.
So, like to say it's going to be, a golden age, are they going to have dominance over Ireland? I would say if Ireland don't cop on and get their 10 sorted, like because he's got to run the attack. Because remember, like in this first half, France were looking like they were run ragged. Ireland had
Yeah,
so possession and territory; they were run
yeah,
ragged. The only difference was like compared to like a previous years, Ireland would have put 10, 15, 20 points on them at that point. And then you have a serious game for the French to try and get back. So they would have
yeah,
been in previous years, they would have been 15 to 20 down by the time of the I was going to call them the bomb squad, but they're not the bomb squad. There's only
yeah,
one bomb squad. But you get me what I'm saying.
yeah.
So like
It
that,
was an interesting statistic that got put up in the second half, and it was how many trips each team had made within each other's 22 and how many points came out of it.
mm,
Ireland had double the trips within the
mm,
22 and had 7 points to show for it.
it's not good enough. Like you just can't do that. I'm
France
afraid.
had half and had 20 points to show for it. And that's I think that's the decider right there. Can you seal the deal at crunch time? It's how the Northern Tour when the Springboks beat Ireland or beat Scotland. That was what it was. Scotland got plenty of chances but couldn't
Yeah,
seal the deal. That's what happened today.
yeah.
And do you put that on one player? Do you put that on a system? Do you put that on a coach? I think you put it on everyone.
I think
You've
you definitely put it on everyone. It's like I mean, for as much as I'm giving out about Prendergast, this isn't like essentially it's not his fault. Like he's just
no,
been put in the situation and he's not ready. It's not his fault. It's not even to say that he won't be ready. I'm not even going to say like I think he's just ridiculous and he should never play again. Like that's ridiculous. Like
yeah,
he could be up to standard after a couple of good pre-seasons where he's on the beefcake. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
He needs to put
yeah.
on some fucking timber, like
That's
And
what it is. Sam needs to put on weight. He looks like a kid. He needs to put some upper body strength. He needs to get a stiff upper lip. If somebody says something, say something back. If somebody pushes you, push them back. You know what I mean? Like and I think that also kind of comes on your captaincy too. Like if Doris sees that, you need to be the captain and be like, no, you don't shove our 10 around like that. Like you don't know, you don't do that. Like you don't
yeah,
because if you tackle the crap out of Antoine Dupos, yes, I call him that. You don't think that Buvaka and all those guys are going to come? No, they're all going to come to his aid. That's their
yeah,
captain. You don't do that to him, and
no,
it's you just saw it, man. There just wasn't enough. the urgency wasn't there with Ireland today, and it showed at the end of the day on the
And
score sheet.
at times as well, it's something I see a lot with Ireland, and when they're good, they don't do this. So at times they're impatient. So like they're inside 5 meters, and they're making big mad stretches for the line. You're like, you're gonna get held up, guys.
Yeah,
There's,
yeah,
there's, there's 10 guys around this ruck. You're gonna get held up. You're definitely, even if you get it down, the referee's not going to see it. He's going to call
yeah,
it held up. So like they just they can be a little bit impatient at times, and they certainly were today. It was at least twice they were held up over the line. So like when just maybe like just a little bit of deception, just holding onto the ball a little bit longer, moving it maybe one pass out, or getting a guy running a different line could have got you there, but you kind of made a huge stretch, and it was a Hail Mary job. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
It
Well,
smacks of kind of desperation.
there was a point in the first half where you had 14 phases. 14 phases ends with a turnover.
Yeah.
Like that's a failure to stick to something. That's a failure to figure out what's going on. And I mean, we saw it. I mean, we've seen it in many games, not just with Ireland. You saw the All Blacks at Twickenham versus the Springboks, that game lead up to the World Cup. They just couldn't commit. They couldn't seal the deal, and Ireland just couldn't seal the deal today. And whether that's, like I said, we can say it's not one person. It's
No.
everyone failed to do their job today, and that's the end result.
Yeah.
The score sheet, and unfortunately, it was versus a team that can really punish you for making those mistakes, and that's what France did to Ireland today.
Yeah.
They
So
punished them. So
really, like, really punished. Like, I mean, yeah, like the blame is portioned out. Like, and I'm sure it's going to be a really harsh review for all of them. But like you mentioned, like 14 phases, and I saw that a lot, particularly in around the 22 as well. And so Ireland have been like, if you looked at them so far, the Six Nations, they've kicked the ball an awful lot, but they've had a lot of strike plays from like between the first and the fifth phase.
yeah,
Like 2 phases in, there'll be a move. And it's. I was actually really, really optimistic about that, because that's the opposite of what you described. You know what I mean? That's the opposite of what we saw against the All Blacks in the World Cup quarterfinals, where it's just phase after phase, sometimes going backwards. It's constructive and decisive, and you don't really give the opposition much chance to kind of get set. And once they get set, then you're really just battering your head against a wall. And it's kind of down to the 10 to have those, have the guys, lined up. You need to have your shape right so that you can actually hit them in the first 4 to 5 phases. And I'm not talking about like wonderful strike plays. I'm just talking about it, just to have the shape right instead of just going laterally, or because it seemed like that's all Ireland were doing. Like, I mean, obviously they weren't making too much gain line. So
yes, weak wings. French attacked it. Weak number 10. France saw it, and they attacked them for it, and that's what they did. And you always saw, like I said, we saw Sam out of place in a lot of positions. A lot of times he was not where he should have been. Wasn't really doing what he needed to do with the ball, and you could kind of just tell. Like, and that's something that experience will fix. But
or it may not, or it may not. It may never. Like,
yeah, what if? Look, this is something I had a conversation with a lot of people, and they didn't want to hear it. What if he's not Sexton's replacement? Like, people don't. They're so afraid that's. Oh no, that'll. What if? Look. When Andre Pollard went out, we were all sold on Manny Libok. And then we come to find out, he's really, I mean, he's great at attacking. He's a terrible kicker. Kicker.
He's hard to rely on.
And we had to accept that. And there's still people that are like, no, he's great. I mean, he has his flashes and whatnot. But regardless of all of that, Andre Pollard is still the number 110 for South Africa. There has yet to be now. Sasha Feinberg might be that replacement one day, but he's not right now.
Yeah.
Neither is Manny. Neither is Hendrickson. None of these people replace Andre Pollard. And I think maybe Irish fans, especially the younger ones in particular,
Yeah.
might need to get to the realization maybe this guy isn't the answer. You know, I mean, and you have to accept that. Just because you love a guy doesn't mean he's supposed to be there. Like, I mean, I love a lot of rugby players that never make really good international test stars, you know, and it's sometimes you have to accept that. Sometimes guys just aren't cut out for it. So,
Yeah, like a lot of it has been fed by the media as well. People just love to kind of, really build a guy up. You know, he's the next Johnny Sexton. He's the next this. And as I said earlier on, he must be doing some incredible shit in training for people to be talking the way they were because we've not seen it. And yeah,
do you remember the Marcus Smith and Johnny Wilkinson photos that got leaked to the press where it was Johnny and Marcus out on the pitch together and it was like, oh man, he's passing the torch. Marcus Smith is nothing compared to Johnny Wilkinson. They're not even in the same conversation.
Johnny was just doing a bit of coaching. That's all that was happening.
But you know, like the media does that. They'll push this guy like, oh, this is the next guy. And it's like, well, what if he's not? What if he's not the next guy? Like,
yeah.
You know, and is it the end of the world if he isn't? No, you just find somebody else. You never know.
But people, here's the other implication. So we got the Lions tour after the Wales game. Like even the Welsh commentators, everybody saw he's going to start for the Lions. Is he going to start for the Lions now?
No. Look, anybody saying that, you already know who's going to be the starting 10 for the Lions. We already know who it is.
Yeah, it should be Finn Russell. Yeah,
and I don't like Finn Russell that much either. So it's like, but it's going to be Finn Russell. You know, it's going to be Finn. It was always going to be Finn Russell. Like that's, it's not to say that I don't think. Here's the real question: do you think he even gets selected?
Not after this, no, I don't think so. I don't think you can. And like,
do you think Crowley gets selected?
You see, I don't think you can either because he hasn't even played 10 this year. So how can you do it? I mean, you'd have to select him based on his monster form. Do you know what I mean? But at least, I suppose the last game in the tournament, you'd have to give it to Crowley just we're sorry, play 10, and you give him a chance because, if you were selecting the side at the end of last year's tournament, Crowley would have been a shoo-in to go. So
definitely, 100%. Yeah,
and he's done nothing wrong. Like he's absolutely done nothing wrong. So that's the problem. I know. Like I've got my monster bias hat on there as well. But anybody from the outside looking in would have said the same. So you can't.
I think when the selections finally do come out, you want to know who I think is going to be the most upset fan base in all of it.
Who?
It's going to be Leinster fans. They're going to be upset. Yeah, because they're going to think every single one of their guys deserves to go. And then Farrell's going to be like, yeah, not so much, guys. Not so much. Now, I think the real debate will be how few Welsh players get selected. Right now, the way I'm looking at it, I see one, maybe two.
Jack Morgan, is it?
Jack Morgan is one, definitely. And I could see him getting selected.
What's it, the front row forward?
It's the same guy we're both thinking of, and I'm drawing a blank right now. Hold on.
Dewi Lake, is it? Or
yes. Yeah, I believe you're right. Hold on. Let me check real quick here.
I'm not sure, but he's talked about very highly, I know. But yeah, so like this really does put the cat amongst the pigeons now. Russell at 10, Marcus Smith at 15. I wouldn't have Marcus Smith anywhere near that team, George.
I would not. No. Marcus, he'll get selected, but I don't start him. He might come off the bench, maybe. Like,
honestly, I think I'd be a more solid fullback than him at this stage. Like, you'd have, you just any number. You could have Kinghorn, who's also a good player to back up at fullback, playing great rugby in France as well, by the way, and.
I'd probably put Hugo Keenan ahead of Marcus Smith at 15. That's just my personal opinion.
Oh, definitely. That was just assumed. I wasn't even mentioning that. Like that's.
So during that summer tour of South Africa, you guys had Osborne's younger brother was who filled in at 15. Is it Jamie Osborne's the main one, and then his younger brother?
Are you sure that he does have another brother? Yeah, who's doing really, really well. I'll just double check there now. But anyway, carry on.
He looked pretty damn good as a rookie at fullback. I know he's not really in the pool. I think it was more of like an injury thing that he came in for, but or is it Jamie Osborne that they moved to fullback for those games?
Yes, it was Jamie Osborne.
And he looked pretty damn good compared to who he was facing up against at the time, which was Fossey, and I think LaRue played one of those games. But like, yeah, I mean, he looked good compared to that. But like, yeah, I would not start Marcus Smith at 15. Now, granted, you know what? You could probably start anybody at 15 because despite what Aussies think was Super Rugby, I don't give them a prayer.
No, I don't.
On this British and Irish, they don't have. And honestly, if you look at the British and Irish Lions tour, the team that they've had the best success against has been Australia.
Yeah, well, it's the team. Everyone has the best success again. You know, when you do Southern Hemisphere tours.
Yeah, it's either Argentina or Australia because you're going to struggle against the All Blacks. You're going to struggle against the Springboks, and
yeah, that's it. I would say most people are kind of praying that Australia makes some sort of a fist out of it. Maybe can win one game just to try and make it a contest out of it. But and that's genuine. Like, that's not even being like insulting. Most people are just hoping to God that it's going to be a decent spectacle. Because
like
the last one,
competitive. What's
sorry?
Up? What'd you say?
Oh, the last one.
You say the last one was horrific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely.
It was terrible.
Yeah, I never wanted to watch it again after that. I was, oh my God.
Even though we won, we did win. That was terrible to watch, dude. I mean, with all the people getting sick, the games getting canceled, there's no fans at the games. It was quite poetic, though, that the same guy that had won it for us the previous time with a kick won it for us again with a kick, and then pretty much retired right after that, Morning Stain. But like, it was ugly. So I was here already for that. I actually went to the 2017 game, one of the games of 2017 in New Zealand, and that was, it was the Sonny Bill red card game in Wellington, rainy and cold, and it was just like shit. And it was part of the reason why I hate Owen Farrell with a passion.
Yeah, he's a love or hate him kind of guy.
I've brought it up before. Would you take him to play for Ireland?
Oh my God.
I mean, his dad's coaching there. I don't think it's ever going to happen, obviously.
No,
but if it did, would you say yeah?
I'd have him in there now. Yeah. But he
at 10 or 12,
get into that team now, definitely. At 10, definitely. But
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think, oh God, it would be. I would hate to be in the sheds with that because I guarantee you, there's a lot of guys on Ireland that do not like it. It's just, hey, why'd you slip that? Like somebody's coming in for a charge and they kind of step out of the way and the guy just folds Farrell and he was like, "You did that on purpose," and he was like, "Yeah, you remember that game a few years back?"
Yeah,
like I see something like that happening, but
Mr. Tackle School.
Yeah. Oh God, I heard he's got a PhD, man. Like, I heard he got his PhD. He's been so many times, but man. Thank you for jumping on here with me, man. It's always actual Irish rugby fans. You know what it's going to take to go forward. So,
yeah. I'm
sipping on for the evening.
I guess I'm old enough to kind of not be so attached to the team, but at the same time, support the team. Do you know what I mean? Like if shit happens, like you just gotta call it. Look, that was fucking horrific. You know what I mean? Let's put the tail between the legs and exit the building. But like realistically, I mean, I look at this team. This is my I suppose my final thoughts. I look at this team and I see a lot of guys aging in there. I see our centers are aging. We obviously saw 3 guys retire today. And there's a lot of guys coming through. Like trust me, there are a lot of guys coming through. There's so many guys who don't even get a chance on this team, and that's a problem. But it does make you think. Are we potentially on the way down here?
Did you peak already?
We peaked already. Do you know what I mean?
It's another thing that nobody wants to talk about, and like I live with it constantly as a Springbok fan. Did we peak already, or are we peaking, or are we? I think if you're a rugby fan and you're a diehard, especially for your country, whatever it is, you don't want to ever think about like, oh, are we in a rebuild right now? Wales, that's a rebuild.
Yeah, for sure. That's a rebuild from the ground up.
Australia, I hate to say it, they think that they've gotten. No, you're a lot further behind than what you think you are. So, with that being said, I think my last thing I want to say in all of this is I've got one final thing here. Angus Gardner giving you a red card for shitty officiating. There is no longer. You're gone for the day.
Is he Australian, by the way?
Yes, he is.
Oh, get back to Australia. That must have been a terrible flight coming up. It must have been really shitty food too as well. It must have been just so. I hope he gets a bad pint of Guinness somewhere. Puts him on the toilet, because he deserves it.
Oh, God.